Welcome to the online training for working with Dash. This is specifically for elementary educators working with the Dash robot. With this training, you will learn what the Dash robot is, the benefits of it, how it can further your learning as a 21st century educator, how you can implement it into your classroom, and even a couple activities you can try on your own. So once again, the purpose of this video is to empower you as a 21st century educator, to make you knowledgeable of Dash, the robot, what its capabilities are. So hopefully by the end of this, you will be able to use it as a tool to help your students create and foster innovation. You'll be able to correctly identify different capabilities that Dash possesses, and you'll be able to explore Dash through hands-on play. Dash is an interactive robot that allows children to experience programming with hands-on play. So Dash is built to respond to objects. He has wheels that allows him to move around objects, move around and dance, even race. He has microphones and speakers. Dash has the capability of recording voices and playing them back, which students often enjoy. Um, he also has the capability of being connected to other devices, other robots, Dot being one of them. We're not going to explore Dot today. We'll solely focus on Dash, but the Wonder Workshop has multiple robots that can interact with each other. He also is capable of Bluetooth, which is pretty obvious in our case when we are using apps to control him. He also has some other buttons that you can use during coding and some fun LED lights and sensors that once again allow him to interact with things around him. So first we're going to take a look at when you first get Dash. So you'll see he's got a little button in the front. If he is fully charged, you'll just click it and he should turn on. It's important to tell children not to grab him by his head as it is on a swivel, and that you should always pick him up by the base. If he's turned the wrong way, you just simply move him to the side. I would suggest before you even turn Dash on that you download the Wonder app. It comes from the Wonder Workshop, the creators of Dash. They have multiple apps that you can use to control him, but today we're going to just be using the Wonder app. So once you have that downloaded and he's been turned on, you can click the Connect Find Robot button on your device, and it should find Dash. After you have connected Dash to your device, it will ask you to upgrade him if possible or if needed. If that's the case, you can leave him standing or you can plug him back up with the orange cord that comes with him, the power charger. It says it takes about 5 minutes. However, for me, or for most people, it normally will take about less than 2-3 minutes. While you are updating, it does give you a short video that you can watch to see some of the things and features to look forward to when you're working with Dash. The video that I'm showing on this device also highlights some of the features that Dot, another robot, has, but once again, we're just going to focus on Dash for today. After your Dash robot is done upgrading, it then will bring you to a customizing screen on your device if this is the first time you have paired this device with Dash. It allows you to choose different colors for his LED lights. Whatever color you choose will be the standard color he stays unless you code him to do something different. It also allows you to choose a couple of different personalities that Dash has. And once again, it's very kid-friendly, so anything they choose, they'll be happy with. After you're done, it will take you to the scroll quest. Now, this is the part where you get that basic concept of what Dash is capable of doing as a robot. Now, the interface on this is not as intense. It starts off very simple: make Dash automatically say hi, and all you have to do is drag the two connecting pieces. And as you can see, the first time I tried to connect the entire piece, and it did not let me do that, but I shortly learned after that there are hints provided that allows you to move forward if you find yourself stuck. So as you can see, I've migrated now from the desk to the floor. It took me several attempts to finally get him to say hi. And once he did, he celebrated just as you are seeing, but he was also moving around. And when he moved, he fell off of the desk. So when you are working with Dash, I would suggest you work with him on the floor. Don't want to harm him. He's definitely a larger robot, so I would definitely suggest that you start on the floor. So once again, this portion right now we're experiencing is us getting to get the basic coding concepts of what Dash does. Once you get through all 6 parts of the basic coding, so making Dash say hi, making him move, making him celebrate, um, turn and spin in certain directions, then we are going to be able to do the free play aspect, which is where a lot of that hands-on learning comes into play. So this exploration part, this would definitely be teacher led. This is a good place to set expectations and boundaries for how you want students to operate him, especially if they're working in groups. I would make sure that each student has a set role, and that each student has an opportunity to do each of the basic challenges. There are 6 total. I wouldn't suggest groups larger than 6, just to kind of help with classroom management. Also, with the challenges, there is a section, it just showed it, where you can choose different sounds for him to make. During the free play portion, it does actually give you an opportunity to customize and for you to put your voice actually on Dash, which could be really creative for some students, those who feel confident enough to do that. Also, another thing to keep in mind when you are using Dash, you want to make sure that you have enough space for him to roll freely. I had to kind of adjust myself a couple times to make sure that I wasn't in his path. And ironically, it's a path I set. So you want to make sure that students have enough range and enough freedom to be able to move him freely. So once we have finished all of these courses, then we get into the free play. This is also a great opportunity, even before you start to introduce him to the classroom. This is a great opportunity for you as the teacher to kind of get a grasp on the basics, especially if you're working with younger students. You can actually tell them, hey, I want you to do just this simple task. As a 21st century learner and educator all in one, you want to be able to be confident in your skills. So I would definitely suggest that you practice with Dash, making sure your spacing is correct, that he doesn't run over anybody or anything, and that you know the basic concepts in order to help students get through this part successfully. And at any time, if you want to continue to go back and revisit the basics, it does give you the option to redo the task as many times as you like. So now we're looking actually at the FreeQuest screen on my device. So this is the portion where students have a multitude of options, things that they want Dash to do, simple as turning left, right, and then it can get as advanced to saying certain things when he reaches a certain point in the room. This is where, as the educator, you have the option to give students free reign, or you can set assigned task. For example, have Dash go 50 centimeters ahead, spin in an 80 degrees to the right, and then continue 50 degrees in the direction that he lands. This part of the free play is really where a lot of the learning takes place, because there's a lot of trial and error that happens. At any point, if students are unsure what the symbols are, you can see it on my screen. When you click on certain ones, or really all of them, it shows you and it tells you exactly what each piece will do before you even add it. So if you don't want something, there is a small trash can on the left side of the screen, and you can drag it down there to throw it away. If you hold it down, you actually can start completely over. So just let students know, if they choose that option, they cannot get back their work once it's deleted unless they have saved it previously. They will not be able to get it back. But once again, it just kind of gives students that free range, connecting it, and they are coding. Now, granted, it isn't your simple or your standard block coding. This is definitely more for your lower levels, just to get them to see that robots only do what we command them to do. They're very simple. So they're only going to turn left if we tell them to turn left. In terms of like turning right, they're only going to do that if we tell them. And once again, if you don't want something, you can just throw it in the trash can. With the customizing of how fast and how slow the robots are going to go, that's once again a parameter I would set as a teacher. I would tell them, hey, no faster than or no longer, than 3 seconds going forward. And once again, it just gives them that flexibility to be creative. So your free play area, obviously students have options and a plethora of ways that their learning can go. But when you are not in that section, there's actually an organized learning area that students can look at different tasks at. And so now we're actually going to get into a task that I have for you guys. So your job is to create an obstacle course for Dash. It must have a fork in the road. And when I say fork in the road, means there has to be a decision that Dash needs to make, whether he wants to go left or right. This is a very simple task that really requires only maybe 2 or 3 functions of code for you to successfully do this. And you would use this using your free play mode, if you will, of Dash. So making Dash go forward and then choosing which direction he would go because there's an object in the road that is forcing him to make a choice. So after you do that, you can make it more advanced. Challenge yourself by adding additional forks in the road. See if you can possibly make him cut corners. How closely can he cut those corners? And you can really just challenge yourself. But this is one of the basic concepts that students will be faced with when using the WonderWorks workshops. They have different materials such as challenge cards, and a lot of the challenges do in fact require Dash to get from one place to another with the less amount of moves as possible, trying to avoid certain objects or go around certain objects. So feel free to pause the video at this time and take as much time as you need to construct this. Once again, creating an obstacle course, and the objective is to get Dash, your robot, to code him to make a choice, whether it's going left, going right, and to get around this said obstacle. All right, so now that you have completed this task, I guess this would be a good place to ask yourself, okay, what were some difficulties that you experienced as an educator? And so then kind of mirror that with, okay, as an adult, this is what I had trouble with. So what do you think could be some possible road humps, roadblocks that your students might experience when trying to do this task? Yes, it sounds simple, just making, a choice to go left or right and to go around this obstacle. But once again, we're looking at a new type of technology. It's not your traditional standard block coding. So there are some interface things that may possibly come up as questions for your students. So as an educator, just kind of think through these problems and anticipate these types of issues. Having your students complete simple challenges like this in the beginning not only empowers them to feel confident in using Dash, but it also enhances collaboration. What one student might not be strong in, another could possibly be in. And so just fostering those positive conversations of teamwork and accountability, each person having a role to make sure that this is laid out. With these types of obstacle courses or challenges, I would definitely suggest that you have students complete a plan, make a plan for what they intend on doing before actually coding. Yes, coding is trial and error, but it normally normally goes a lot smoother if students have a set plan and a direction that they want to go in first. This is also a great opportunity for students to really focus on the learning and design process. So, if something does not go the correct way they want to, being able to go back into the drawing board and having those conversations with each other. What went well? What did not go well? It is important to note that if you want students to go around the fork in the road, for your lower ones, you might need to be intentional. That means that Dash cannot touch the object that is in the road. Dash is not allowed to braze or graze beside it. He has to go fully around it to avoid it completely. But once again, the learning and design process, this is all a part of that exploration, learning hands-on. And so giving students the opportunity to have a task and have possible, more than one possible way to solve it, and then having them come together and choose, okay, well, which way is the best way to do it? And then for some of your students and groups, they may solve this task rather quickly. And if that's the case, then you can ask them, okay, well, how could we make this task harder? And if so, how would you solve that? So always taking it kind of like a step further. Making it more intentional, even having the students come up with the storylines for what is it exactly that Dash is trying to get. Yes, in the end, we want him to get from point A to point B, but what is really the intent behind it? So, what I've done is created my own version of the task that I assigned you a few seconds ago. So, what I did was I created a fork in the road. I set a parameter for where I wanted Dash to start. This is also a task you can try yourself too. So I have a taped off section around Dash, and I would suggest that you give students a requirement here where whether they have to make him turn around, maybe dance, change his LED lights, something simple before you officially start to show that they have mastered those customizing skills. So after you do that, there is a fork in the road. You're actually looking at the back side of the card, but the front side of it has a numerical equation expression on it that students have to solve. And so at the bottom of the card, it gives students two options. It says left for parentheses to choose to go to solve the section that has the parentheses first, or go to the right and choose the section that is actually division first. Now, this definitely requires some prep work. However, if you work with the upper grades, you could actually have the students do the prep work. So I would suggest that you come up with the equations that you want students to solve, and then have students correctly solve them the correct way. So in this case, we're doing orders of operations. So parentheses would get solved first, then your division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So following that order, you would present students with these equations. They would solve them first, and then they could actually create their cards in order for their Dash robot to have options to choose from. So with Dash, it not only gives students that empowering sense of coding and being creative, but it also gives them a sense of responsibility when you're presenting them with their own learning. So you give them the equations, you give them the task, but then kind of let them be creative in how they want to present it. So this could easily be a relay game, racing dashes against who can solve the problem first and who can go to the correct side first. This could easily be a review game, one-on-one. Definitely could use this in small groups. There's an endless possibility really to how you can use Dash in the classroom. But the biggest takeaway is that it's definitely a tool that can empower students and let them take learning into their own hands. So this is actually the challenge in real time. So I put a wait time in the code because I figured for my students that they would solve it within about maybe 20, 30 seconds, if even that, and not even solving the entire thing, just making a decision which step to choose first, with that being a fifth grade standard, knowing the orders of operation. And so as you can see, this time he would be waiting, and then the rest of the coding kicks in. Okay, well, we are going to choose to go left. So we're dancing, we're moving, we're choosing to go left. And so he'll actually do a slight turn to the side, and he'll go to the card that is on the left side. And the card that's on the left side is actually the next part of the equation where he's going to stop. They'd pick the card up, and then students would solve the rest of the problem. The card on the other side just says sorry, not sorry, to try again. And then it even gives them a hint by rewriting, hey, this is PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, reminding them what the order of operations actually are. This type of activity where you are faced with choices for Dash to make could work in any discipline. Reading, you could use it for different points of view, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just a fork in the road. You could even do four corners, having Dash go in different directions when looking at comprehension questions, each corner being A, B, C, or D, and having Dash be programmed to go into a specific corner. This actually could be a great review tool. Once again, you want to make sure that when you are using Dash with students that your groups are not too large, because you want every student to be able to have a chance to operate him and also have a voice in how he is operated. When looking at other disciplines such as social studies, for example, fifth grade, looking at Native Americans versus Europeans and choosing sides. Which one do you think had the right to be upset about the land? Native Americans who have lived there their whole lives, or Europeans who some came for a brand new start and had no other place to go, using Dash to make a choice of which direction or which side to go to, and then even having students take it a step further and be able to support their side with evidence from historical texts. So Dash is, yes, a robot, but it's also a supplemental resource that can be used within the classroom. A simple review that used to be taken, with standardized bubble letters, could easily be exciting with using this robot as a tool. Students, when they are empowered, they want to learn, they are motivated intrinsically, and this robot definitely provides that. Not only does it help students, but it helps us educators as well, because it kind of lessens our load. Oftentimes we find ourselves trying to make our content interesting, trying to make the class different, and something as simple as putting a robot in it, making it go a certain direction or do a specific task, definitely heightens students' interest in what we are trying to teach them and what they're learning. From an instructional point of view, not only does it lessen the load for us as teachers to try to have that motivation for students, but it also changes our role from educators into facilitators. As technology continues to become more and more advanced and more immersed into the classroom, we see that the way teachers traditionally taught is being evolved over time. Standing in front of the classroom, regurgitating things out of textbooks just to have the students regurgitate it back is no longer considered the norm for how students work, but really being able to have them have those hands-on experiences and giving students that ownership over their learning. And while turning students into leaders into their own right, we as educators are starting to turn into more of a facilitator role, where we're not necessarily in the front giving step-by-step direction, but more so guidelines, saying, hey, these are the parameters. This is what you're going to deal with. This is the problem. These are your materials. How are you going to fix it? And once again, not just giving one individual student that power, but when you're putting them in groups and you're giving students roles, everybody feels like they are a part of something. Anytime you're dealing with new technology, especially robots or anything where students are going to want to be the leader, where they are the ones touching it, they're the ones moving it around, but being really intentional about making sure that everybody has a role and that everyone at some point is that person that gets to press the go button, something as simple as that. So we have covered today who Dash is. We've defined him as a robot, but he's also a tool that is for fostering and creating innovation in students. We've had a chance to look at what he is capable of and even explore his capabilities through hands-on play today. Not only is he beneficial to us as educators as we use him across different disciplines, but he's also a tool that is really beneficial when we're thinking about setting classroom norms and cultures. So we know the academic aspect of what Dash can bring to the table. We know that he can help with thinking, multi-step problem solving, being able to have those conversations. But when we think about Dash as a tool for our classroom culture, I think that is a really big role that it can play, especially if you introduce Dash early on into the classroom at the beginning of the school year. Even if it's not in a classroom setting, but if you do a professional development where you are team building, Dash is a perfect tool for that. It allows you to set the expectations for what collaborative work looks like. So, once again, establishing what those norms are when you are assigned a specific role, what that looks like, what positive discourse looks like, when people have arguments and setbacks, being able to constructively disagree and come up with a solution that everybody is comfortable with or everybody has agreed to some extent. Dash is also a great tool when we're thinking of how to set a positive culture where mistakes are encouraged. Oftentimes, when we are dealing with coding, if it is not set to the correct code for the correct time, then you normally will come across certain mistakes. And that can get frustrating over time. But once again, kind of setting that culture that mistakes are encouraged. And when you find the mistake, okay, don't just stay focused that we made a mistake, but let's try to focus on, okay, how did this mistake occur? How can we move forward so it does not occur again? And if it is a reoccurring mistake, is there something fundamentally that we're missing that maybe us as educators, we may need to go back into and help adjust our classroom? And then lastly, Dash is also a great tool when we're thinking about how to set boundaries and limitations to maintain control over our classroom environment, thinking about classroom behavior management. Anytime there is a new tool involved, there is risk for there to be some animosity, organized chaos, if you will. But if you set it early, with Dash, for example, being able to say, hey, this is how we take care of our materials. This is how we put materials up when we are done. This is how we handle certain things. Then a lot of times as the school year goes on, you won't have to keep telling your students to continue to follow expectations because it should be so ingrained that they will know what the expectations are and they should successfully be able to follow them. So, Dash, once again, it is a robot at its core, but there are so many different applications that it can be applied to, building communities, building self esteem in students when problem solving, fostering that love of learning, that love of exploration, being able to really just let students explore, and being able to become learners in their own sense and at their own pace. So I hope that this professional development was useful. I hope it was enjoyable. And I hope you learned something from it. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions, or anything. Any additional resources can be found on the Wonder Workshop website. They do have a couple of free resources. However, if you're looking for some school wide, they do have quotes for it, but there are some free resources. And the Wonder app that I mentioned earlier is not the only one connected to Dash. If you go on the Wonder Workshop website, as I mentioned, they do have some other free apps that Dash and other robots such as Dot can come together and really just make your classroom a great place for learning. If you have any additional questions, and didn't want to leave a comment, feel free to email me as well. Um, I have used this in my own classroom, so I definitely have some experience behind it. I have a couple of lessons that I've used for fifth grade content across all disciplines. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. And I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was informational.